been. Um, I've got a special guest with me today, and she would put things into a lot more perspective in terms of mental health safety, online safety, grooming, cyberbullying, and all of that. So, thank you for tuning in. And this is the second episode of the Health and Wellbeing Show, and looking forward to being your new host. Um, I think what I would want to start off with firstly is to say that online and technology and social media has definitely certainly gone wild. It's gone crazy. Everyone has a digital footprint. Everyone has a digital footprint, and in a way, this also includes children, and the children who, most of them do have smartphones, and most of them game online. Most of them watch things they're not supposed to be watching, or think innocently that they're watching the right thing. So before we start, I'm going to look at and just give you just few statistics and numbers so I can put things into perspective. Now, in the UK, there was a study done by the NSPCC, and this was carried out last year. The study looked at how safe are children, and the report compiled all the analysis and did a very robust and up-to-date child protection data over 4 nations in the UK. The report also explains and looks at what the available data tells us about the current child protection landscape. It also highlighted a call for a new UK-wide prevalence survey to give the clearest possible picture of the extent of child abuse and neglect. But most importantly, what I would like to look at is the numbers. Now, it says 1 in 4 of 8 to 11-year-old, or 3 in 4 of 12 to 15-year-old have a social media profile. And that is according to Ofcom. And also it says that 1 in 3 internet users are children. So 1 in 3 are children. And 1 in 4 have experienced something upsetting on social media networking site. The experiences of 11 to 16-year-olds on social media networking site has been they've experienced something that's upsetting. Either they've been something not nice being said to them, and that has actually had an impact on them. And also 3 in 4 parents have looked for or received information or advice about how to help their child manage online risk. So they've searched, they want to know how do they manage online risk. And then I would also like to stress that children in the main visit social media websites and things like that, or on social media, because innocently, it gives them that sort of interaction with their friends. It makes them want to, they feel like they're not missing out on anything at all. So on that note, I would like to introduce my guest for today. My guest for today is Lorine Lafave. She's the founder of the Breck Foundation, and she's also the head of education and external affairs. This is a self-funded charity, and their mission is to educate the digital generation to keep safer online as they play virtual but also live in the real world. So Lorine set up a charity in memory of her son Breck, hence Breck Foundation, who was murdered by someone he had met online while gaming. So I would like to welcome you, Lorine. Good morning, Lorine. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, morning. Morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Lorine. Lorine, what I would like for our listeners to put things into perspective, but most importantly, maybe just to start off by telling us a bit about Breck, your son, who passed away in 2014. What was Breck like? And also maybe a bit of a background history about what happened, the incident that happened.
Well, Breck was my firstborn. He was he was a good boy, clever boy, loved building and making and fixing things. Started off loving Legos and putting things together. Minecraft was one of his first games that he really enjoyed playing. And he was kind of an everyday schoolboy, though, although he was, extremely special to me. He was just a regular kid who had friends, who, gamed like the other boys. And when he was in year 9, he switched schools. And at that school, he ran into some friends that he knew back from primary school. Okay. And so they invited him into a gaming group. And for me, it felt like a safe place for him to game because I knew them back from primary. Some of the boys had been to the house. We'd been to birthday parties and sleepovers together. I knew their families. I knew where they lived. So when he was gaming with boys from school that I knew back from primary, I was really sort of comfortable with that.
Okay.
I could hear him online. I could hear and see what he was doing, sometimes headphones on, sometimes off. But in general, there didn't seem like there was anything wrong. He was just a bit noisy, occasionally having a laugh with the guys. And then I overheard a man's voice that he was gaming with. And when I questioned Breck, he seemed completely comfortable with this person who claimed to be 18 years old and ran the server. And because Breck was introduced through friends of friends from school, it didn't seem like anything unusual to Breck at all. He felt completely, comfortable in the situation. Yeah, absolutely. I then started to feel that Breck's personality was changing. He was getting more dismissive of sort of how we lived in our house and the things that we believed in. And I felt like his value set was sort of being changed by this stranger online because everything, started to be about this new friend who was so great with, computing and supposedly worked for the U.S. government in New York City. And it all sounded sort of made up to me. But because Breck got all of the information through friends of friends from school, for him, he believed and
that was
trusted.
Valuable.
Yeah, his own friends. And so some of the boys had been gaming with this predator for up to 4 years. So a lot of times children will think, oh, well, I've been gaming for a while. We've had a rapport, we've had a laugh. But this was up to 4 years, and these boys actually, didn't know who this person really was. So I tried everything. I tried to speak to people where I worked at my school. I spoke to Breck's school. I spoke to other parents. But at that time, just 4 years ago, nobody knew what advice to give me when I was talking about the fact that I thought Breck was being groomed. I was actually using the big G word, and nobody really knew what to say. And they'd say, well, all boys are gaming online. My kids game online. Everyone's gaming online and talking to strangers. It's the norm. And that's the thing. Our norms have completely changed.
Right?
And I've noticed since I've been working in this area, there's actually more girls that are gaming now. And if you look at the marketing that some of the companies are doing, they are trying to. They're pulling girls in too because it is fun. It's enjoyable. They have a good time. But, they are trying to get that other market in as well because it all comes down to more money for industry. So I didn't know what to do. And at that point, even though I had been trained at school, we didn't actually talk about online safety outside of school. It was all about keeping children safe whilst they were there. And so now the focus on education, we try our best, and so many other people do as well, to reach children so that they are safe no matter where they are, because they will be taking their devices wherever they go. So it's not just about, setting the parameters and the privacy settings and the parental controls at home or at school. It's about getting them to understand digital resilience and healthy relationships no matter where they are, at the park or a coffee shop or a friend's house.
Precisely.
So, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know about CEOP at that point, and CEOP stands for the Child Exploitation and Online Protection Command. They're part of the National Crime Agency, so they have access to police records. I didn't know about them. We hadn't talked about them. There were no posters, and they actually could have helped because they would have been trained to understand sort of the signs of exploitation.
Okay.
None of Breck's friends thought to call Childline at that point either. They knew that Breck was a target. They joked that this predator was a pedo, meaning pedophile.
Yes.
They noticed that every time that Breck came online, he was taken off somewhere else, which is the norm for a predator, to
pull them out of the group.
Yes, away from their support system, their friends, their family, where they're safe. And they knew that, but they, just like myself, they hadn't been educated on what to do, so they weren't empowered to sort of take steps. They even kind of said they thought somebody else's parents knew, but nobody knew to take sort of that proactive step.
Precisely.
And if we had had more pieces of the information that all of us knew kind of compiled together, it was really obvious that Breck was being groomed. But I was the only one that was sort of saying I thought he was being groomed, and I just didn't have sort of the education to get people
to pull people's attention.
Me.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. To pull people's attention.
Yes. So I think people thought that maybe I was just an over-worried parent. And the thing was, is I didn't know why the boys were being groomed, because it wasn't just Breck. They were all being groomed.
Wow.
At first, I thought it was for something sexual, because I didn't really know the real terminology of child sexual exploitation.
Precisely.
And I was imagining that this predator was going to ask them to exchange naked photos.
Yes.
Because we know it's such a problem with young people.
It happens, yes.
They don't recognize that actually, it might come back to haunt them in another day. And so I thought, well, maybe that's what he wants. And then I thought maybe he wants to live stream. And we've seen in reports that predators are getting young children as young as 8 and 6 and 7 to live stream in their own bedroom sex acts.
Really?
There's no one in the room telling them to do it. It's someone online. And so I thought, well, maybe he wants to do a live stream, or maybe he wants to meet up for something sexual. Now, I didn't mind if Breck or any of his friends were gay, or, that wasn't the issue. I just didn't want an adult pushing their sexuality
on your child,
before they had, were ready to decide for themselves, or were ready or old enough to have that sort of any sexual relationship.
Precisely.
So I think because I didn't know why they were being groomed, it made me less sort of credible. So I would say 1 week, I think it's something sexual. The next week, I'd say I think it's radicalization, because he was so against all religions, all governments, even education.
Really?
Claiming to the boys. Yep. Well, he was saying he could provide them with Microsoft apprenticeship. He could provide them with career opportunities. So basically, he was trying to pull them away from everything that they had been taught within their own home of what they valued, whether it was, religion, education.
Or anything they stood for. So let me just ask you a quick question, Lorine. I'm just trying to think through, based on what you've just told me, how did these boys, because you're saying the boys, some of his friends from his previous school had already been groomed, and then Breck was pulled into that group as well. Were these boys just kind of met people online and then got chatting to them, and then that's how the whole thing built up? Or is it people that what happened?
Well, within sort of, I'd say, our community, which, Croydon, Surrey area, all that whole area, from what I know, there was one older boy who was young at the time. I think he was only 12 when he met the predator and started gaming with him. So, so many of our children are gaming online and socializing online with strangers. So that's how they met. And basically, it was a great place to game. It was a really good setup, fast, efficient, really well-run server. So as the boys then met other boys in the community through church, through school, through primary school, through secondary, they then started inviting other boys in. So basically, you kind of felt chosen to be the lucky one, the lucky one that was chosen to be able to come into this,
group,
great.
Yes,
And so it kind of trickled in where, they'd bring friends in, they'd bring someone else from school in. So it was throughout, a handful of schools within our sort of community, but then there were also gamers all over the country. So
it feels like, like a sort of network where it's really clearly masterminded by the predator. They know who they're targeting. They pull one and the other one pulls another one in. And, because obviously, even as an adult, sometimes if your friend tells you or encourages you to, come along with me, you think, yes, they're credible. Do you know what I mean? So you feel comfortable in kind of, making that judgment, even, more so a child as well. So in a way, you're saying that's how the whole thing came about. And you have a group of predators online, just kind of looking for, kids, teenagers that they can pull in and groom. And then you've got, the kids on the other hand who, young adults who don't know anything, and they're just really blind to the risk out there.
Hold on 1 minute, just one moment, please.
Okay, so we'll go for a little break then, and we'll be back in about a few minutes.
Okay,
we'll go for a break. Okay.
Well, this was the thing, is
I drank 24/7, drank on the way to work, drank at work.
I never could come to terms with admitting that I had an alcohol problem or a pill problem.
I decided to get clean And so I went to the Narconon program.
Not only did I handle my drug addiction, I completely knew how to live life.
Call Narconon today at 01435 512 460. 01435 512 460.
ABN TV Gospel Fest is back.
Hallelujah. Celebrate Jesus with me tonight. Hallelujah.
With award-winning Joe Mettle. Bank Holiday Sunday, 26th August 2018 at Plush TBC Oasis House, 5 to 9 Peel Road, Croydon, CR03EX. Expect an awesome night of praise, worship, and transformation. On the bill this year, all the way from Nigeria, the Welu Master, Sami Oposu.
This is the Welu Master. Just to keep on the beat. Watch this. So, I love to sing your praise.
UK-based Andrew Bello. The sensational Shekinah, and many more. Get your tickets now from abntv.co.uk and abnradiouk.com. Tickets are £20 standard and £35 VIP with reserved seating, goodie bag, and VIP reception with Joe Mettle. All tickets purchased will be entered into a prize draw. Gates open at 5 p.m. ABN TV Gospel Fest with Joe Mettle. Don't be told. Be there. Brought to you by Real Money Transfer, World Remits, Miss E Divine, and ABN Radio. Get your tickets now.
Consider that life wasted. Consider the heart of the family ripped apart. Consider the potential never realized. Are these the things you consider when you carry a knife? It's not about street cred or respect. It's about staying alive. Drop that knife and save a life. Quentin Slowly, supporting all family and young people.
Hi, you're back onto ABN Radio, and this is the Health and Wellbeing Show. We're talking today to Lorine Lafave, who is the founder of Breck Foundation. Basically, Lorine was just talking about online safety and how can we monitor kids to be safe online, and mental well-being, grooming, cyberbullying, and all of that. So, Lorine, you actually were saying how Breck, your son, who passed away in 2014, how he was groomed online, and basically, you know, you were saying that his friends actually introduced him to this. Was it a game? Is it a special room that they have to go and play? How do they meet the predators online? How?
Well, they met sort of on a server that was run by the predator through something called TeamSpeak. They would spend time on, which is like a Skype situation where it's, you know, like a live way to interact. Okay. I am not game and tech savvy. Breck was amazing at technology, and he was the one that would always help us around the house with the computers. And, you know, I could hear voices that I recognized, and so that made me feel comfortable.
Yes, indeed.
Until I heard the voice that sounded deeper. And straight from the start, I thought it was a grown man. Now, this is sort of, for me, an important message. I assumed, sort of these stereotypes in my head, that all predators are creepy old guys. And that's the thing, is we are sort of taught that. And it is sometimes, you know, it is statistically a real problem. But there's also a sort of a up-and-coming issues that have happened where there are more younger predators out there than we realize. They've been normalized into thinking that some sexual relationships are healthy when they're not. For instance, having access to hardcore porn when they're young boys, they start to think that this is the norm. Or if it's with underage children, they start to think that is the norm, and they become desensitized. And so when you look at some predators that the police are now finding, they're actually in their 20s. They actually think that it's okay what they're doing, accessing these images of young boys and young children on the computer, because they've been doing it since they were children themselves. So it goes back to education, you know. Yeah,
so they don't know better at all. So, in other words,
or they pretend to not.
Exactly, they don't know better, and they pretend not to know better because I just think if they've been doing it from age 8 or 9, and then to a later stage in life, that it becomes the norm, which is not supposed to be the case.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which is not supposed to be the case. But so you were saying, and so how did...
So I imagine this was some older predator, and the more I tried to warn Breck and the boys about that, it probably discredited me as a parent. They probably thought, oh my God, she's so paranoid. He's not older, because they did see him once. He hid his identity normally. He said he had to for his undercover work. But he did show them his identity enough so that they saw that he was a teenage boy himself, and they completely let their guards down. Yes, they saw him just once, and they thought, well, God, it's not that creepy
It's
old
not
guy.
that bad. Yeah, he looks
it's
like
a regular kid
yeah.
our age, and I think that's important to remember. Is there are a lot of predatory. It's the personality type. This predator was predatory from a young age. He had even groomed boys all over the country and in the States when he was young himself. So it was his.
So he's got a whole
law.
history of what he's actually been doing it for a long time. So he knows what he's doing. For someone to have, I've never heard about someone that age having a servo where he can just kind of do his own thing and basically. On notice, basically. So
he was very technologically advanced.
It sounded like it.
It appealed to the gamers. The boys looked up to him like he was some tech guru, or he was mentoring them. He was offering them free games. Boys all over the country, free games would come over the internet. The tips, the help, the cheats, and if you look at all the games with Fortnite coming out and being so popular, and
they wanted to be a part of it.
Yes, and these companies are making money, so there are predators who will offer them freebies, offer them help to get different skins, or it's all about building these relationships through shared interests. And in this particular group, that was their shared interest, was gaming and computing. With the predator, it could be built through anything. It could be through musically enjoying singing and dancing online, asking the children then to change their outfits or dance in a more seductive way. It could be through a football game, promising to meet up with a coach or get free tickets to their favorite shared, team that they both love, or meeting up with for a tryout or something. It's always shared interest, which is
the target, isn't it?
Regular friends. Well, yeah, and it's hard because that's how we start regular friendships as well.
Yeah.
Through our shared interest. But that's what they play on. They play on that.
Yeah. So, that was how the whole thing started. And then, Lorine, just talk me through what actually happened and led to your son, Breck, ending up at the predator's house and, subsequently being killed at his premises where he lived. Can you just kind of,
I think, I didn't know where to go. And when I, as helpful pieces of advice, I worked at a school, I spoke to Breck School. I would say make appointments with the school formally. Sometimes people don't want to tell their business, but actually there are, measures in place that schools can help. And I didn't do that formally. Same with police. I know sometimes people don't want to involve police, but actually we need to make sure our young people are kept safe. Exactly. So I couldn't get through to anyone. I even tried to talk to other parents. I couldn't get through to Breck because he was happy. The beginning of grooming feels good. It's gifts, it's compliments, it's having a laugh, enjoying themselves. And Breck didn't feel that he was being exploited. He had no idea what was to come. He thought he was the chosen one. And same with if someone wants, a grooming for a gang activity and they want them to run drugs, they're going to offer them trainers and phones and compliment them and make them part of the gang and feel welcome. And Breck just felt good in the company of this, company of this predator. Now, some of the older boys did start to see through his lies. Okay. But not until they were more like,
they were well into it.
His age himself. Yeah, and they have been groomed for years. Yeah. It's just LD targeted, sorry, I call him by his initials, the predator targeted different boys all over the country. And Breck was, sadly for us, the final target. But I couldn't get through to anyone. I did call the police, and at that time, my force didn't recognize the people that answered the phone and dealt with the case didn't recognize the signs because it wasn't the kind of grooming that was in the news. In the news before that, it was young women, girls who were groomed through gangs for drugs. For drugs,
precisely. Yeah.
Yes, and offering them.
So it's not the norm.
It wasn't what was considered the norm.
Yes, precisely.
So. And then I don't think people didn't recognize that boys can be groomed too. I think there's more boys that are groomed and exploited than we know because they hold it in. They think maybe it's something to do with their masculinity.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe they made a mistake or showed something. Yeah, so they don't want
people to know.
Yeah, so they hold it in and don't talk about it. Breck didn't recognize that anything was wrong. He was pleased with his situation. But I couldn't get anyone to recognize sort of the signs. And I didn't have any sexual messages or photos to hand over. Normally, I feel that with child sexual exploitation, if the parent finds something on the phone, it might be photos or sexualized content there wasn't that. This predator kept that a secret. He was subtle and he was gradual. And even though that was his ultimate goal, to sexually abuse and worse a boy, he didn't make that clear.
Initially, precisely. Yeah.
So I did try with the police and unfortunately didn't get the help that I needed. I did have sort of a lot of information about him, more than some people would. I had his real name, I had his alias. I said he was 18, even though I still at that point believed he was older. I also thought he was grooming them for radicalization because he was changing their ideology. He was changing the way they thought, and I felt that he was quite intolerant of different types of people. It was kind of his way or the highway. You had to believe what he believed, or you were wrong.
You were wrong.
And he was against religion.
It was mind games.
And he was
mind games.
It was
brainwashing them slowly.
And against education, against governments. And I honestly, and this might have made me seem less credible as well. At one point, I said, they're playing violent games. Breck was never violent himself, but I wish he was at this point. But I thought, he's going to throw some weapons into their hands and say, okay, boys, let's go do something.
Yes, precisely.
And maybe that made me sound like I didn't, I was a bit over-worried. I even thought maybe he was grooming them to hack into a school or government computer. Because they were all so, technically advanced.
Yeah.
And he was teaching them to code and to encrypt, and they were learning so much from him.
So at that point, did you actually, this has all happened. I'm not sure the space of time. What was the space of time?
About a year.
About a year. So it was quite a long time, and you sought help and nobody could actually help because actually maybe at the time, there were not services in place. People were not fully aware of what to do because especially, as you alluded earlier, if the sort of grooming that people are used to, the police, for example, and this is not what it is, sometimes you can be seen as someone who's been too reactive or someone who is being, do you know what I mean, not being listened to anyway. So at that point, after a year, you mentioned that Breck and his friends had started to change slightly. What sort of changes, and is there something that a parent, an aunt that is listening can actually, something they can say, oh yeah, this is what I've noticed, or this is how it is. Was there any sort of changes towards yourself, the family, apart from maybe isolating themselves, going to a different room to play or to talk to him? Any sort of changes? What sort of changes could you see in your son that were clearly not there maybe a year before they started playing online?
Well, Breck was sort of pulling away from the family. Now this, I have to say, was really tricky because he was 14 years old at this point, and a lot of teenagers don't want to hang out with the family as much anymore. I mean, I actually have triplets who are teenagers, and one doesn't mind hanging out with the family, and two would kind of rather just go do something else. So, it was hard to tell what is the difference between normal sort of teenage behavior, but I could sense it, and I think that's the thing. And your own child, and someone that maybe a teacher who knows the child well, their personality, and I felt that he was changing. He was pulling away, and that was because the predator was trying to isolate him, and he would constantly sort of speak about what what the predator believed rather than what he believed. And so if somebody starts to, go really gaga or be really wide-eyed over somebody that they're looking up to them so much, I think this is the person we need to check out, whether it's someone in the neighborhood or someone at school or someone online. If our child is all of a sudden really being influenced by someone that we don't know, I think it's important that we check out who this character is.
Yeah.
To see what their intentions are, because whether it's grooming face to face or online, it's
the same.
That influence.
It is the same. Yeah, it is the same. And when did you? Because you also said that you got the predator's name, got his alias, the alias that he used, and his address. How did you get those information? How did you manage to get that information?
Well, Breck was really open with me at the beginning. I mean, that was the kind of relationship that we had, and sadly, as the year went on of him being groomed, the predator realized that I was sort of standing in the way. And so at the end, Breck stopped telling me the truth. He kind of hid things from me. But at the beginning, he was so proud of his sort of new friend.
Yeah.
Because he didn't consider it a danger. He considered it a real new friend.
Innocent, yeah.
Yeah, so he would tell me about him, and he'd be all excited, about what he was learning and doing and how he was enjoying his time online. So Breck was open at the beginning, and it was only after I forbade him from gaming, speaking, or socializing to the predator that it even became more dangerous because it went underground. It became more secretive.
Subtle, yeah, when you're not around.
So I think that's the really important thing is a lot of times people will say, oh, well, just take away the computer, just forbid, just shut it down. Well, it just goes underground then, and it couldn't be a more dangerous place than once it goes underground.
Okay.
And that's what happened.
And that's what happened. Okay. What I was going to say, the internet in the main it's amazing when it's managed, especially for children, when it's managed and when it's, when people use it for the right reasons. Sometimes, whether it's no fault of our own or the children, but it's children can use it to play, to learn, to create, to connect, and it opens a whole door of a whole world of exciting possibilities. But we see clearly when it can and do go wrong, what can happen. So what would like to find out here is, you mentioned about grooming. I certainly know a lot of people who will be listening would think, yes, these are words that are used all the time. I don't know what is grooming, because grooming means, I always say certain words maybe mean different things to different people. In this context, Lorine, what is grooming? So for the listeners out there, for everyone who's watching, what is grooming and what are the telltale signs that, for a young adult? And when I say young adult as well, I want to think that, social media has had an impact on everyone, from a child of no age to, someone in the 90s, hundreds, so I think what we face is different sort of segment of things like this, but social media has an impact on everyone. So when we talk about grooming, what does that mean for a young adult or a child? What does that mean? Or even an adult, because there are adults who get groomed online as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, when you look at it, I was being groomed because initially the predator was building a relationship with me. And if you look at some of the high-profile, stories we've seen in the news, there could be a coach or, the gymnastics teachers, teachers or pillars in the community who build relationships with families in order to make it seem that they're safe, to be able to spend time with the children alone. And that essentially is grooming the adults as well. But it's building a relationship. It's building a relationship to gain trust, to try to influence someone in some way. Okay. So it could be for, leading to sexual exploitation. It could be leading to gang activity. Could be leading to radicalization or anything that's illegal or harmful to the person that they're trying to groom. Basically, it's trying to get someone to do something
they wouldn't
normally do, okay, and that's not healthy for them.
Good.
And so it's really important that we look at that as a whole umbrella of things that could happen and not just get stuck in one vision of teenage girls being groomed through drugs and sex and gangs, because that's not the only version, albeit that is a really horrible problem that's still going on. That when I do my training around the country, there are a lot of places that this is still going on. And the only way we can combat that is to try to get educating our young people at a younger age before they fall into it, because once you fall into it, it's so
very
hard
difficult
to
come out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is very difficult to come out, because I see this in the main most times where when it's gone to that extreme, it's really, really difficult to pull the kids back or the young adults back. And even, some people take it into, that sort of behavior into adulthood, and it's really difficult to get them to see that what is quote unquote norm is not the norm, because they so believe and look up to this person that they believe what the person is saying rather than believe what their parent or their family is saying to them.
Right, exactly. And the thing is even if the child gets out of it, and when they get out of it, there's still long-term damage that they will need, help and therapy and support. It doesn't just go away overnight if somebody's been exploited or abused. And exploitation using a child for sex is abuse. And, they don't just forget about that overnight. And so that's why, for me, we need to really put more into education so that we get more young people to report this or recognize it before it hurts them so that they can actually live healthy, happy, full lives.
Yeah, and that is so right, Lorraine, because like you just mentioned, even if they do get out of it, and even if they stay in it, it's their mental health, which is why their mental well-being, it affects them for the long run. Do you know what I mean? It really, really does affect them. I've seen kids who have gone through similar or maybe even worse, and they have either they've stepped away from it or they're still in it, and sometimes the way they talk about it, like it's their life. Do you know what I mean? It is their life, and they guard it. So no, you can't tell me. This is who they mean so much to me. And then you've got the family unit there saying, well, this can't happen. This is not right, and it's just that sort of friction. And it's really important to have this sort of discourse that we're having. So talking about it, awareness raising, promoting it, making sure that we can never talk a lot about it. There's a place that we can always talk about it so much and kind of promote and so raise awareness so people know that this is what is going on. And also, if you're faced with it, it's not that it's where do you get help? Because I remember when I even posted, actually, I posted on my Facebook page in 2014 when this incident happened, because my son told me about the incident, what happened to Breck. I mentioned to you when we spoke, and he just said, "Oh, Mom, this thing has happened," and he told me about it, and I couldn't believe, because I asked him, because I know, the latter part of it, when it was actually on the news everywhere, and you had to go to High Court and all of that, and he had to be charged and everything. But way before then, and then he said to me, "Mom, I just don't understand how there's so many evil people in this world," and he knew friends of Breck who were going to go to the funeral. So then we had the conversation and talked about staying safe online, and the people you meet online as well. But sometimes it's not an easy conversation to have. How then, as an advocate, as someone who goes around the whole of the UK talking to schools, police units, and you name it, you kind of do a very, very good and amazing job, considering what happened to your son. How would you advise a parent, a grandmother, an uncle, because I don't want to put it down to the parent alone, because like you say, they go around with their smartphones, they go around with their iPad, you don't know what they're doing. They don't have to be at home to do what they have to do.
Exactly.
How would you advise, what does a parent need to do to keep their child safe while online, whether a parent, an uncle, an aunt, a carer, a grandmother, grandfather? How can we keep our kids safe? When I say kids, I'm also talking about young adults as well.
Yeah. I think, what you said about, everyone needing to be aware about it. This is one of our key points is, it's not any one person's job, because the second our child goes to someone else's house or walks to the park or, goes to visit, we need to, make sure that those people are aware of these issues as well, because the child might let their guard down when they go somewhere else.
Precisely.
Even if the parents are trying to have a watchful eye. So it's really about sharing the information, and not just for a child looking after themselves, it's for looking after each other, because sometimes the child that's being exploited might not recognize it. And so it's trying to kind of create a new way of looking at things. And, it pulls in with everything. It pulls in with gang activity, knife crime. It's sort of the same thing. A lot of young people think that it's snitching or tattling or ratting people out. But you know what? If you're trying to talk to somebody about getting help, that means you're doing the right thing. You're trying to do a good thing. Because within this story, Breck's friends, who were all clever, nice boys, they knew a bit about what was happening, but they didn't recognize it. And when they knew that Breck was going to visit, this predator, they didn't tattle on him. They were protecting him because, that's what kids, we probably did it too. You come up with an alibi, you cover for the parents. I think it's understanding these relationships to recognize a healthy one versus an unhealthy one, so that we actually do talk about when we don't see something that seems right. We don't see something that's quite right, because there are a lot of people that will be thinking of doing something hurtful or thinking of falling into something that could be hurtful, and people are aware of it. So it's about trying to get this awareness so that we can get people to talk about it and prevent it. Because if we can prevent some of these things, you save the child from the abuse, you save the child from the death, you save the child who makes the mistakes and causes the abuse and the death, because actually they need help. They obviously need education and help and training and prevention help before they are the ones that hurt. So it's really about getting in and teaching about healthy values and helping each other rather than hurting each other. And I feel that we need to change the way we think. It's not about protecting our own child. It's about setting up community standards.
Precisely.
And whether our community is through school or through our towns or through the world online, it's about looking after each other. And making reports when something doesn't seem quite right.
That's completely true. That is completely understandable. And I know, from a maybe an adult point of view, we also need to be made aware of that sometimes we don't think, oh no, this is normal, it's okay. But also, basically the points that you've just raised is, the kids also need to know that, you're not snitching on anyone. You need to tell, you'd rather tell than wait and something goes wrong. It's important to tell, and it's important to raise the alarm. And even if you're not, even if people think that, oh, you're being overprotective, or why are you complaining? It's okay. You're making a fuss out of it. It's rather you do that and there's nothing, instead of just sitting down and not saying anything.
Right. And so we do promote that, that people do sit down and use Breck's real life story. Be really open and honest. Talk about sexual issues. Talk about what they would do if a friend was approached online, if they were approached online. But they will know they will know the easy answers. No, don't give out information. Don't tell this, don't tell that. But they've been taught from a young age. Those are really black and white rules that don't work. It's never that simple. As teenagers get older, well, in fact, and now even primary, people online are interacting with other people they don't know.
Precisely.
And so we need to get them to recognize that it doesn't mean everyone online is bad, but there are some people that we can't trust. So we need to make sure we make safer decisions. If I could do things over, of course, I'd do a million things a different way. But I would definitely follow all of the PEGI restrictions, age restrictions. Those are, the Pan-European guidance. Those are set to keep our children safe. So, parents are now not even thinking it through. They're letting their children in primary school go on apps for 13-year-olds lying about their age.
Precisely.
Well, if they're lying about their age, now, what
would they do later?
Them?
Yes, precisely.
Yeah, and then they do turn 13, then they're going to look 18. So someone is allowed to speak to them more sexually at 18 years old.
Exactly.
Do we want to put our children in this sort of world where we're allowing them to lie and to engage with people who we don't know? What do we do at that park? Oh, there's some strangers over there. They're older than you. They lie, but you go lie to them too and have a good time.
Yeah.
We wouldn't do that.
We wouldn't,
and I don't
not at all.
understand why it's become the norm now. So I think within communities as well,
there's a lot of
parents groups coming up together with what they're going to allow their children to do as friendship groups.
Precisely.
Because you don't want your child to be the only one that's left out, but you also we all need boundaries.
We need boundaries, and we need to be savvy, actually, in this day and age of technology. And I think, one thing you mentioned about the app, the other thing I know, I found out, I think, a couple of years ago, is we need to be made aware that, if a child or even an adult, you have an app and there's any sort of update, you might have got the most strict parental guidance or consent on the parental guidance on the gadget or on the account, but ever so often, they come up with this updates. The updates come through, and once you update that, everything else is lax. So you always have to make sure, once you've done an update on your phone, on your app, or anything like that, or anything with parental guidance, you need to go back and check if those have stayed the same. Am I correct to say that, Lorine?
And I think that's such a hard thing, and it should be illegal, really. This industry wants to get more of our young people online because it's more money, it's more advertising funds. It's also more information, which brings them money. And so, yes, this does happen to all of us, and we do need to be aware. And I just think it's a hard task that we have. But what we do need to do is sit down with our young people, looking at their device and just having a calm time and say, open it up, show me what you do on this. Oh, that's fun. I like that. Oh, that looks weird. Who says what, who does what. Get to know what our children are doing online.
Okay.
And it's hard for me because I'm not out of the woods. I still have teenagers, and one is completely attached to her social media account. So it's, I'm still not.
Not quite there. Okay. So we're going to have a little break now, Lorine. I would like to say, parents, guardians, carers, whoever you are, just before the break, just remember, always make sure that you know what your kids are doing. Sit down and find out, and even open and see what they're doing ever so often when they're not expecting. Not that you're snooping on them. It's just what you need to do these days. So, Lorine, just hold on right there. We'll be back and we would continue the conversation. Thank you so much, Lorine Lafave from Breck Foundation. Thank you so much for joining me today. Just hold on 1 minute.
General Litigation. .com solicitors are a well-known high-law firm in Tottenham. .com solicitors have been providing legal advice and assistance for debt recovery, wills, trust, probate and inheritance claims, partnerships, dispute, breach of contract. .com solicitors are specialists in these types of claims. Call 0208 880 9000. That's 0208 880 9000 or log on www.comsolicitors.com.
Pay Angel. Pay Angel. If you count my money, I know they joke around me, yeah.
Sending money has to be fast, safe, and efficient.
So what they use? Pay Angel.
Now you can send up to £5,400 to Ghana for only £1.
Only £1? Up to £5,400?
Yes, only £1, and your friends and family can collect with ease from a cash collection point, mobile money on all networks, or directly from their bank account.
This is so convenient.
Wait for the most convenient part. Download your Pay Angel app to your phones and tablets and get started, or visit payangel.com. Pay only £1 for money transfer to Ghana, no matter the amount, when you pay for your transaction with instant bank transfer.
Get paid when your family and friends send. Terms and conditions apply.
Visit payangel.com for details. Pay Angel, truly an angel. Authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
ABN Radio, London's Afropolitan radio station. More news, more information. This is ABN News on the Hour.
From the Sky News Centre at midday, Theresa May insisted she won't accept any Brexit deal that treats Northern Ireland differently from the rest of the UK. In a speech in Belfast, the Prime Minister's rejected Brussels' plan, saying it would mean a customs border in the Irish Sea. And she's insisted there'll be no change at the border with the Republic.
You only have to speak to businesses near the border, as I did yesterday, to see that the notion of a hard border is almost inconceivable. Thousands of people who cross and recross between the UK and Ireland in the normal course of their daily lives cannot be subject to a hard border as they go to work, visit a neighbour or go to the supermarket.
At least 11 people are dead and a number of others are missing after a tourist boat capsized in a US lake. Divers are resuming searches in Missouri. Matt Steele has more.
It was stormy on Table Rock Lake when the amphibious duck boat got swamped, overturned and sank. Witnesses could only watch in horror.
Saw two people. I believe they may be actual workers that jumped in after others trying to save them.
31 people, including children, were on board. As police dive teams looked for victims, local officials were heartbroken.
It's going to be a long night for a lot of people. One of the most difficult times in their life.
The boat was one of two on the water when the storm hit. Only one made it out.
Matt Hancock's promised to boost morale in the NHS in his first speech as Health Secretary. He's also pledged to invest in technology. Donald Trump says he'll invite Russian President Vladimir Putin to the White House in the autumn. It follows fierce criticism of his comments about alleged election meddling during talks between the two leaders earlier this week. The Queen's income from her private Duchess of Lancaster estate has risen by nearly £1 million in 12 months. Accounts show it reached just over 20 million in the last financial year. Sport, and Rory McIlroy's jumped up to the top of the leaderboard at the Open Golf. After 14 holes, he's 5 under par alongside Kevin Kisner. That's the latest. I'm Laura Safe.
So, you need a new car, but just found out you have less than perfect credit. Well, at Wheels for Sure, we've been helping people like you since 2012. And with hundreds of 5-star reviews from happy customers, we really do mean helping. At Wheels for Sure, you could drive away in a brand new car on a 3-year lease, with servicing, manufacturer's warranty and breakdown cover included. So, for affordable motoring, even with less than perfect credit, change your life today at wheelsforsure.com. Wheels for Sure is FCA regulated. T's and C's apply.
Bath time. It's a lovely, relaxing way to start or end the day. To clean the cobwebs off. To mess about with the kids before they get into the gym jams. Add some bubbles or some candles. The only thing that could make bath time even more relaxing is if you've got a smart meter. Because the energy that you could save could give you 115 bath times every year. Save your energy for bath times. Contact your energy supplier about getting your free smart meter.
Based on BEI's expected average annual savings of 2%, participating suppliers and eligible customers only. Savings possible by measuring energy usage and reducing wastage.
ABN TV Gospel Fest is back.
Hallelujah. Celebrate Jesus with me tonight. Hallelujah.
With award-winning Joe Mettle. Bank Holiday Sunday, 26th August 2018 at Plush TBC Oasis House, 5 to 9 Peel Road, Croydon, CR03EX. Expect an awesome night of praise, worship and transformation. On the bill this year, all the way from Nigeria, the Welu Master, Sami Oposu.
This is the Wella Master. Just as you on the beat. Watch this. So, I love to sing your praise.
UK-based Andrew Bello. The sensational Shekinah. And many more. Get your tickets now from abntv.co.uk and abnradiouk.com. Tickets are £20 standard and £35 VIP with reserved seating, goodie bag and VIP reception with Joe Mettle. All tickets purchased will be entered into a prize draw. Gates open at 5 p.m. ABN TV Gospel Fest with Joe Mettle. Don't be told. Be there. Brought to you by Real Money Transfer, World Ribbits, Miss E Divine and ABN Radio. Get your tickets now.
Hello, good afternoon. Hi, you're locked into the Health and Wellbeing Show. My name is Fatima Kamara on ABN Radio UK, and I'm talking to Lorine Lafave today. We're talking all things staying safe online, especially for young adults, but looking also at grooming, cyberbullying, and how we can watch for the telltale signs when things start to go wrong, really sort of subtle, and then progresses to something else. Lorine is the founder of Breck Foundation. Breck Foundation was set up after her son Breck was murdered by a predator that he met online and groomed as well, and Breck eventually went to the predator's house where he lost his life and was killed in 2014. Welcome back, Lorine. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lorine, we were actually talking about the telltale signs and how parents should be, I think nosy but proactive as well. Am I correct to say that?
Yeah, it's hard to find that balance.
It's very difficult. You think nosy, you don't want to be too nosy, no. Especially with teens, they kind of start to get, you're in my business, that sort of thing. But proactive and maybe a little bit alert as well, instead of just saying, well, it's okay, they're just playing and they're just, talking to someone online. But just kind of be a little bit proactive and alert. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and all the research that's been done is actually our brains aren't able to make the best decisions throughout our teens. That we actually can't assess sort of risks as well. And even if you look at within Breck's group, the boys were just a couple years older started to see through the lies that the predator was telling. So that is our job as parents, and that's what's so hard with what happened to my family is I tried so hard to protect Breck, and I still failed. And, that's what our job is. When we choose to have a child, we choose to look after them, to train them, to educate them, to love them, to protect them, but also to teach them to be good citizens themselves. And, you know, in this case, the predator did not have parents who were looking after him. They didn't take care of him, and they didn't ensure that he was a healthy, happy, and safe individual. And that's what we want for our children. We want the best for them.
Best for them. And the predator, how old was he? 18? Was he 18?
He was actually 18, which surprised so many of us because he acted older. He didn't seem to be a happy-go-lucky teenager because he wasn't. There was, you know, something seriously wrong with him. He's a psychopath. He doesn't value life. You know, he told lies nonstop, and he just didn't have any apathy. I think he liked Breck, and how you could take the life of someone or any life, or especially someone that you like as a friend, is just shocking. And I think as much as we don't want to use Breck's story just for shock, it is an example of how someone built a relationship.
It's just
built
the reality.
a relationship, and they weren't who they really said they were. They were catfishing. You know, we see the shows, and you know they're sometimes fun to watch, but in reality, there are some really dangerous
horrible people.
who are catfishing.
Yes.
You know, most of us are happy with who we are mostly, and you know we're ourselves, and we portray ourselves as who we are. But online, it's easy
a different facade.
For predators.
Yes,
it's
predators
to pretend to be someone else, to try to entice a child to do something that they wouldn't normally do. And the police have said there's maybe over 100,000 offenders online in the UK alone.
Oh, wow.
And they will all each be grooming or exploiting hundreds of children because it's a numbers game, you know.
Yes.
And that's why the more we can get our children to educate, stand up, say no, report, hopefully we can get more of these people off of the cyber streets, you know, because they won't stop until they find a child who makes a mistake.
And leading on to that, when you know, they won't stop until they find a child that makes that mistake. When Breck eventually went to the predator's house, you were not aware of it. What happened? Can you just put that in a little context for us so you can understand what happened?
Well, you know, this is why it's so important to make sure everyone within the family and friendship group is aware. I did make everyone aware that I was worried Breck was being groomed, but it wasn't my weekend. And so Breck asked if he could go, asked his dad if he could go to a friend's house from school. Well, his dad trusted him. He said yes. And so Breck actually didn't really even need to sneak away in the sense that
he was given permission.
And a taxi even collected him at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. Now, Breck, you look at behaviors again. If your child is doing something out of the norm, find out why. Breck never took taxis. First of all, we lived in town. He took the train or the bus or walked. Secondly, where did he get the money for the taxi? Who was funding a taxi? Because that can be expensive. And why was he leaving at 7 o'clock in the morning? A teenager up at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's like nobody had sort of a curiosity because he was a trusted boy. And even when with the police, when they couldn't find photos of the predator, it didn't bring up a professional curiosity. But to me, it should have said, why does an 18-year-old hide his identity when the rest of the teenagers are showing too much? You know, and so it's asking the questions and actually not like back to it's not being nosy, it's being caring, it's doing the right thing. So he was trafficked and lured and trafficked an hour away to the predator's flat in the county where the predator had always lived. He had lied about living in New York City and London and all of these jobs and careers that he had. They were all lies.
Oh, wow.
And, he basically was just in the same county, hanging out at home. He didn't have a proper job. He didn't have any relationships. He didn't have anyone looking after him, or, he just didn't care about people.
So his life was centered around just grooming boys online. That's all his life was centered around.
He was doing. Yeah,
oh,
full
wow.
time, building relationships with boys from 8 years old and up. And that's what concerns me so much is we're putting these devices into our children's hands, allowing them access to anyone
the caution,
who and I don't get how anyone could be so horrible. I try to imagine, how could you possibly even think of hurting someone in this way? I can't, but some people are sick, and he had an obsession with some really unhealthy things. And
then
that would, there were signs of that along the way too, but once again, people didn't report things. So it's really not, don't hold these things in, talk to somebody and get the help that we need.
Precisely. Talk to someone, and even if they don't want to, kind of hear or understand where you're coming from, go somewhere else, keep trying. don't actually give up and think, well, I've spoken to this person and they think, or this service provider, or I've spoken to this person and they think it's okay, it's normal. If you have an intuition that says it's not, and you can see the telltale signs, you really need to up and do something about it and get help where someone can hear and someone can action something.
And instinctively, I did know, but I didn't have the help to back that up. But I think when we look at victims, the children, sometimes police or school or maybe anyone will actually think, well, that child's misbehaving. They're the ones that's hanging around with the wrong crowd, or that, if they're the child and they're being exploited, they are the victims. They are not the perpetrators, and that gets really confusing. Because some children will be pulled into sort of a sexual lifestyle or, something to do with drugs or unhealthy activities, and they need to be pulled back out. It's not they're not able to make those choices.
Judgment, yes, precisely.
At those ages, and they need help to get back out.
Thank you. Thank you. That is just so real. That is just so true. And we can't say it enough. And we can't, just sit down and think, certain behaviors are normal. But I want to also believe, Lorine, that when we talk about children, young adults, teens, I see a lot as well in terms of social media when it comes to adult. How do you, in the work that you do, how does this, because I know it's mainly centered around what we're talking about, social media, online presence, which, in the next 2 to 5 years, it's going to increase, fortunately or unfortunately, and the kids are going to have even more access to it, and adults, the adults in the same sort of situation as well. What would you, in just a nutshell, what would you say are, sort of advice and advice for any adult on social media? Because we're all on social media, we're all on the net, every single person, I'm sure there's a huge percentage of people who have a digital footprint, these days, if you don't have a digital footprint, especially on social media, you're seen as not being normal. Do you know what I mean? So how can adults kind of be mindful in their interaction as well online, whether with perceived friends or whatever? How can we be careful, in terms of staying safe online?
Well, I think, all of these apps and games and social media platforms are designed to get us addicted, and they will deny it, but the more we spend time on their platforms, the more money they make, the more information they get, the better advertising rates they can get. Precisely. So I think we really need to look at ourselves and think, is this our best use of our time? And it's hard for me because so many businesses and charities and people who are trying to promote really great things do need to promote it through social media, but it is very time consuming. So I think try to find that balance. We're not getting the sleep that we could. We're not reading as much.
Because of that. Very true.
We're not doing the things that we used to have time before. Precisely. Because we're tying ourselves to our devices, and we do need to have a break. I thought it was interesting. It came out in the news that actually teen pregnancies are down. So there's one thing that's come out of good that we know for sure.
Very
teen
good.
Pregnancies have gone down because children are spending more time with their online relationship
instead of the humankind.
So that's the result. It did kind of make me chuckle, but we have to get that balance right. And
very important.
I see so many young parents too, and their children are trying to talk to them, and the parents are on their the devices. And to be honest, I've done it myself. I'll have my phone in my hand. My children are home from school, and we need to put our devices down and look at our children and engage with them eye to eye. Listen to what they're saying. If we expect them to listen to us, we need to listen to them as well.
Very true. Very true. I think that is very helpful, because yes, we're talking about, in the main, some of the things we've spoken about applies to young adults, it applies to children, but also we're in a generation where the adults also are just as guilty, and we kind of face a different a different sort of take in terms of online safety. But I have a take where at home, maybe for an hour and a half, in the evening, there's no device that is on. We sit down and we have to talk. Do you know what I mean? Because, it's amazing how the kids also would say, well, you're on your phone and you don't want me to be on my phone. Do you see what I mean? And you're watching. And I think in nurturing relationship, it's very important that we leave the devices, we leave the stuff, and just have, sit down and have communicate with people, not on text or not on WhatsApp, but just sit down and communicate with your family. But also, if there's someone you haven't seen in a long time, send them a text and meet up with them, instead of just, only talking through social media or only through WhatsApp, or when something goes wrong and then you get to talk to them. So I think
one thing that worked for us is we do have sort of a no devices rule for dinner, so that we can sit down, just what you're saying, and spend time together, hear about what they did at school and how their day went, and then by the end of dinner, I let them pull their devices out so that they can start showing me some of the things that happened that were funny during the day. And for me, that's a good mix. So we have the beginning of dinner where we're just us, and then by the end of the meal, when we're kind of sitting around after we've eaten, it actually helps us to stay at the table longer. So rather than them say, okay, I've been doing what mom wants, off my device, I'm going to sneak back into my room, they're actually allowed after we're done eating to sit down and sort of engage. And then that's when they show me what they do online. And I have to say, it's funny, it's engaging, it makes us laugh. We have a good time, but we do it after we sort of bond in face to face. I think that's been a good way for us.
I think that's really good, because it's very important going back to the traditional way how things used to be, even if it's just for 1 minute, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you kind of get a sense of value. Do you know what I mean? You get kind of, nobody's looking at anything, nobody's watching on their smartphone. You kind of can engage with them. They can hear, you can listen to them, and you can actually also read their body language as well, and they can understand where you're coming from. And I think it's just a good thing to have, because the world is going mad with technology, is increasing at a massive pace, and social media is not going away anytime soon. So on that note, I would want to say thank you so much, Lorine. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the knowledge. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Good talking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And like I said, when we spoke and we've discussed, if there's anything we can do to help, please reach out. You're doing a fantastic work with Breck Foundation.
If anyone's interested in learning more about our work, it's breckfoundation.org, and we have Facebook, Breck Foundation, and Twitter and Instagram as well. That sometimes we get too busy to work, but we like to communicate, stay in touch, and share information, and that's what it's about, sharing information.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you for everything you do, and keep up the good work with the foundation. And if you did get the details that Lorine gave out, if not, then you can actually call the studio or email us, and we can provide you with those details. But it's actually Breck, BRECK Foundation online. So if you go on Google and enter Breck Foundation, you would be able to find and get more information about the charity. And in closing, what I like, the word that I actually like that you use, Lorine, is play virtual but live real. I just love that. If we all can play virtual, we can play on our phones, we can listen to the news, we can read our emails, we can be on WhatsApp, but actually there's a real world out there. So there are times that we need to just put the devices down and just have human interaction. Thank you, Lorine, and thank you for joining us. So we come to the close of the Health and Wellbeing Show. My name is Fatima Kamara. Until next time, see you again, and thank you for watching and listening. Thank you.
ABN TV Gospel Fest is back.
Hallelujah. Celebrate Jesus with me tonight. Hallelujah.
With award-winning Joe Metz, Bank Holiday Sunday, 26th August 2018 at Plush TBC Oasis House, 5 to 9 Peel Road, Croydon, CR03EX. Expect an awesome night of praise, worship, and transformation. On the bill this year, all the way from Nigeria, the Welu Welu Master, Sammy Oposu.
This is the Welu Welu Master. Just as you on the beat. Watch this. So, I love to sing your praise.
UK-based Andrew Bello. The sensational Shekinah. and many more. Get your tickets now from abntv.co.uk and abnradiouk.com. Tickets are £20 standard and £35 VIP with reserved seating, goodie bag and VIP reception with Joe Metal. All tickets purchased will be entered into a prize draw. Gates open at 5 p.m. ABN TV Gospel Fest with Joe Metal. Don't be told. Be there. Brought to you by Real Money Transfer, World Ribbits, Miss E Divine and ABN Radio. Get your tickets now.
Consider that life wasted. Consider the heart of the family ripped apart. Consider the potential never realized. Are these the things you consider when you carry a knife? It's not about street cred or respect. It's about staying alive. Drop that knife and save a life. Gwenton Slowly, supporting all family and young people.
It's legendary beats.
They know my story. From old dogs to